All right, first I want to start by saying congratulations to Tim Hardaway, number one, for making the Hall of Fame. It slipped my mind when we were doing the Hoopers Afternoon session on this past Wednesday. I was supposed to say something about it, but I'm making sure I don't forget today. So congratulations to Tim Hardaway, legendary point guard in his own right for the Golden State Warriors and the Miami Heat, and a big member of those Run TMC squads, even though they only last for 2 years back up in Golden State.
Right. Shout out to Tim Hardaway. Tim Hardaway was a player that I always thought should have been in, but I didn't know necessarily if he would make it. 5-time All-Star, 5-time All-NBA, 17, basically 18 a game, 8 assists, 43 from the field, 35 from 3. That'd be good for today's standard. And he had a real good stretch where he was one of the, I won't say that he was ever the best point guard in the league, but Tim Hardaway had
definitely a tier 1 point guard.
Yeah, and he definitely had a stretch where he was a real problem. Made his first All-Star game, his second year in the league, and things like that. So, shout out to Tim Hardaway. He played on some revolutionary offenses, and when I first started watching him, it would have been Miami Tim Hardaway.
Right.
That would have been around the time I would have been tuning in, and that would have been an older Tim Hardaway, but he still was always really good. And then as you get older, I go back and do my research, and you find out about killer crossover Tim Hardaway. It was like, oh yeah, this is why he was so good as a veteran, because he been nice like that. So I always like to see players like Tim Hardaway get in. People think that I wrap it up. People think that the NBA Hall of Fame, or the Basketball Hall of Fame, excuse me, because it's your basketball achievements overall. They think some say it's watered down because a lot of different players get in. You don't have to be the 5-time champion, 3-time champion to get in. And that's because basketball always just celebrates its player. A player is the logo. So the basketball is real good with celebrating any type of memorable players. And 5-time All-NBA, like you always say, you got to have a good 10 years. Out of 10 years, half of those years, he was All-NBA, which means he's one of the better guards in the league. So that's Hall of Fame worthy to me.
Oh, surely. And with that being said, I'm John W.
It's Fresh X.
And it's the Hoopers Hour on Nothing But Net Radio, presented to you by Dash Radio.
Real quick, his basketball reference probability Hall of Fame was 79.2%. So I'm actually surprised they had it as that high. But I think he should have got in.
But we always, just to stick up with Tim Hardaway real quick, because Tim Hardaway would have been like one of a kind point guard, the way he could score and get assists. Because at the end of the day, he's not averaging 20, but for his average to be 17.7, he's consistently giving you 18, 19. He probably snuck a 20 in there somewhere.
Right. Well, he actually had a good run of giving people 20s. It's just, you got to remember, Tim played a long career, so at the end of his career, he's averaging 9, 13, 14, but he averaged 20 about 5 times in his career. So, his career high was 23 a game. His third year, he averaged 23.4 points per game.
But we always do hypotheticals with certain players we like because their numbers don't necessarily stand out, like a Rod Strickland, even a Brandon Terrell, just players like that. But Tim Hardaway, who has the numbers to actually show that he was a borderline great player, like 5-time All-NBA, you gotta be you're a great player in my opinion.
Yeah, and you gotta remember he had a knee injury that took him out his whole 5th year.
Like I said, just to do the hypothetical game real quick, if we were to not drop because you just can't drop him, but if Tim Hardaway was of age where he played in this generation with his same game, how much more would he benefit from just the spacing, letting point guard actually run the plays and get the ball, quick rebound, running up and down in space, shooting, high pick and roll out. Like Don Nelson is a revolutionary offensive coach.
Right.
But you throw in that and then now you give him the space to go one-on-one and some pick and rolls with a mismatch. How great would Tim Hardaway be right now?
He easily fits in this era. Obviously 3-point shooting wasn't a big thing back then, but I think some people, just because it's obviously taking more now, it's definitely taking way more now. We can't dispute that. I think people overlook it was players out there that was shooting the ball. I mean, in 94, 95, he took 7 threes a game. 37% from the field. He was typically around. He takes 5 threes a game for his career, so that's a solid amount of threes. I think if he plays in this era, you add 2, 3 threes a game to that. That puts him about 8 a game.
Right.
And, I think his numbers stick. So, and then just more in the era of he already played on a team that played in space and playing on those early run TMC teams, one of the earliest teams that utilize small ball, fast break, positionless basketball, all those fun buzzwords that we hear nowadays. He was on one of the original teams.
Right.
The first few teams you could say that did that would have been like the Showtime Lakers, and then like them, and then as you go on, more teams use it or whatever. So I imagine him in this era, you putting him with a big, they playing pick and roll. He fits that role well. So I think he's still an all-star in this era, and he was a quick guard but a big guard at the same time because he was so strong. So I think he'd be stout on defense also. So Tim, I think he fits in good in this era, honestly.
No, for sure. No, I definitely agree with that. I think Tim Hardaway would be, especially with one of those coaches who really is offensively creative and let their point guard really run the show.
Exactly. Yeah.
So real quick, I don't know if you.
I imagine just in comparison, like I just see he would be in the same mode, especially as a guard that's handling the ball. I see him coming off the picks, like how Trae Young plays, how Kyrie plays.
A more
Kyrie
threat version of a Chris Paul.
Chris Paul, yeah, how he plays with the pick and roll, like he would play heavy. I feel like he would play heavy pick and roll.
Because I feel like say he averages 8 assists for his career. I feel like
exactly right.
I feel like that would jump up to 10 easily in this era.
Yeah, for sure, 20 and 10.
But shout out to Joel Embiid. He's gonna be the first center in I think it's 40 years to average 30 points. The last being Moses Malone.
Shout out to
another great Philly center and MVP, and the first center since Shaq to lead the league in scoring. And Joel Embiid, while he might not have the analytical numbers or all the initial stat numbers,
he's around. He's not first, but he's there.
Nah, yeah, Vorp and all that stuff. I'm not dissing those. I'm just saying he's not necessarily. That's not what they talk about.
Yeah, that's
when they talk about Joel Embiid and his MVP case. I don't even want to make an MVP case for him right now because I just feel like his dominance alone, game in and game out, should be enough for his MVP case. But did you know Joel Embiid for his career is averaging the most points per minute all time in NBA history?
That doesn't surprise me because if you remember his first year of actually playing, remember he was playing a lot of 23, 25-minute games and he was having 25 points every time. So it's not really that doesn't surprise me.
No, not even that it surprises me.
It's crazy because I hadn't thought about it, but when you think about it, it don't surprise me.
Top 4 seasons for points per minute, 2 of them is Wilt. One is him last year, one is Joel last year, and one is Joel this year. Wait, it's 21-22, yes, 2021. Yeah, so the top 4 in that specific category is Joel Embiid. And I'm only bringing this up because whenever we hear about efficiency as far as scoring goes, always shooting numbers and splits and shots and possessions like that. But with how Joel Embiid scores, because you're right, he came into the league playing low minutes, low amount of games, just trying to get him in shape and get him healthy, which even now he still doesn't play heavy minutes unless he absolutely has to, or he's just rolling one night. Would you say he's one of the most efficient scorers ever when you just look at it points by minute? And I don't think nobody's thought about that because usually when they talk about efficiency, they're only talking about, like, say, field goal percentage, shooting splits, and all that.
Yeah, you got to put him up there because I mean the numbers just show that he has always produced in a low amount of minutes, and like I said, he's averaging 33 minutes this year, 30 points per game. Like I said, that rookie year he was averaging 25 minutes, 20 points per game. So he's always giving you that production. So you got to put him in that territory.
No, for sure. Like I say, do you think just looking at that also help his MVP? Like, I'm not trying to make an MVP case because of how dominant he's been, but when you get into stuff like that, do you that adds on to his dominance and maybe helps propel the MVP case for some voters?
I would think so. I would think so because I mean it's part of his numbers, so I think it matters. His production for this team should matter. The kind of the ups and downs that they went through this year. But yeah, his efficiency with his scoring, I think it matters because to lead the league in scoring, and it's not just about him leading in shots taken, but he's actually out there getting the buckets. I think he plays a good part.
No, for sure. I seen something interesting, and it was all kind of the talk of Jordan playing with plumbers. So this was somebody tweeted. What's this at? at Hall Simpleton says if MJ played against Plumbers, how was the sixth man from the 92 Blazers, Clifford Robinson, RP Uncle Spliff, not able to make a single all-defensive team from 1990 to 99, ages 23 to 32, but then able to make all-defense teams in 2000 at 33 and 2002 at 35. Aren't the 2000s so superior and evolved? And like I said, this isn't a case to prop up one era or another, but when you hear that, how, like, that just shows how great of a player that Clifford Robinson was in his own right, that he was able to stay that consistent. And when it was time for him to really show and prove the way he can make a team, he make it twice. Did that speak more on just, like I say, on Cliff, or that just the competition in two different eras, in your opinion?
I think a little bit of both. We all know the people who brings up any type of Plummer conversation for any era is somebody that don't really like basketball, and it's just a way to prop up this era or whatever. But it do show the consistency of him, even if you want to say just him being able to transform into a different player as he got older, to being like, all right, this is where I can impact the game at, and being able to evolve into that. So that shows the talent that Uncle Spliff had, and he was one of the first stretch forwards that I could remember. He was one of the first guys that, I mean, because I don't, now that I think about it as I'm older, was he really a 4? Was he a 3? He was playing a little, I feel like he played a little bit of both now that I think about it.
Especially coming off the bench.
But he probably was more of a 4.
Spot, but he would have definitely been like one of the first.
Especially as an older player, he was a 4 for sure.
So he definitely would have been one.
But with Portland, the young Portland team, championship teams,
I'm pretty sure he let him play the 3 a lot.
Play a little bit more just because he could run up and down. Like I said, and you didn't necessarily rely on the 3 to handle the ball, because I'm not going to act like he was just running the offense or whatever.
His touches is still going to be in the mid post and the low post area in general, because that's how offenses ran in the 90 a lot of times.
But he was one of those first players I can remember knowing that he's not a guard and he is going to play a lot of minutes at the 4. And that was shooting threes. So yeah, he's one of those players. Look, we had a little bit of all this in all the eras. You know, that's why we get the players that we get now, because the players that people don't know, like Uncle Spliff, Uncle Cliff, RP to him, that really impacted. You know, he was a really good player for that Portland, for both of the Portland teams that he played for.
Right.
So go back and watch that finals. He produced for Portland in that finals. For that whole year for Portland. That team was really good. That team was really, really good, actually. I can't remember who that coach was. Was it Rick Adelman? No, I don't think it was Rick Adelman.
Rick Adelman would have been in the 2000s. Yeah, 92 would be Mike Dunleavy.
That was Mike Dunleavy. Yeah, that was Mike Dunleavy Sr. Yep. Those Portland teams were really good. Clyde Drexler, Terry Porter. There was somebody else on their team that I really liked. But Terry Porter was a problem. Shout out to him, too. Sure. He'd be good in this era, too. I don't think he'd be an all-star, but he's a guy that utilized the 3. I can remember him as a young player like Terry Porter. He gonna get him up. He gonna shoot them 3s. So he'd be a good 3-point shooter in this era.
Nah, I definitely agree with that. So, I know you don't know a lot about the prospects, but the WNBA draft is tonight, I think. As we're recording this, the Atlanta Dream actually traded for the number 1 pick.
Oh, I like to hear that. I didn't know that, so I ain't gonna act like I did. But
Atlanta Dream did.
Always a supporter of the Atlanta Dream. Shout out to Renee Montgomery, always a supporter of them.
And I don't even want to necessarily talk about draft. Like I said, I've seen some players watching the women's tournament at the end of the, just recently. Shout out to South Carolina for winning the whole thing. Shout out to Dunn Staley. And real quick, as I'm watching it, I feel like Dunn Staley is the Gino Auriemma, but Gino Auriemma is the Pat Summitt, RIP to her and her legendary career.
As we go to the next area.
Because I think Dunn Staley, she beat him. This is Gino's first time losing in the national championship. He was 11-0. I think this is Dunn Staley's second championship as a head coach, and it's just the way she was beaten down. They were beating down on UConn.
Yeah.
Paige, who is a great player, they slowed her down. I think she only had 14 points. Shout out to Dunn Staley becoming that new coach who's probably going to revolutionize the women's game. And I know a lot of people feel a certain way about Gino. I didn't even know even then, because they always felt like he had a recruiting advantage. Or I know a lot of people wish that would have been a woman in that position as well, being as dominant as that. So I think Dawn Staley, especially being a black woman, she's going to bring another change to the game over the next 10 to 15 years.
But first of all, shout out to Dawn Staley for being that coach. Dawn, I always kind of figured she could be. She was
fly too.
Yeah, she'd be super fly. She was a great
Really
point guard, like a really great point guard. So it wasn't surprising that she was a great coach. So I do remember though when Gino, because Gino, like you said, he had 11 championships. We were of age when he started kind of bringing that team up, and that was the person that Pat couldn't fit. Pat was the one that was beating everybody before, and then when Gino was coming, like somebody might win here or there, but Pat could, and RP Pat, but Pat could always beat everybody else, but couldn't necessarily figure out Gino, and now it is starting to seem like Don is next, but. To say that Gino, in my opinion, that this recruiting advantage, I mean, it's not like it was just he took over. Correct me if I'm wrong. This amazing Connecticut, like he built it to be.
Now, you know what I'm saying? Them having with ESPN being in the backyard, basically that was like an recruiting advantage, and a lot of people.
But that's because he built them to be that though. Because if they weren't good, because it doesn't work for the men. You come in are good. They got a historic team. They got national championships, but at the end of the day, they always was getting the best players, and they were winning. Because I mean, Tennessee would still get some people here or there too. So I can see it, but it's easy to throw that recruiting advantage stuff out when you really just dominate.
I think that's what it really is, because like nobody could figure it out. Like every year we knew he was getting 6 of the best 12 players, truthfully.
And it's because they were all figuring out ways to coexist and still go to the WNBA and still be great. Like I can remember UConn having 4 of the 5 top picks.
And only the one that was Nana Taurasi.
Right.
She got into the draft.
But then even if you go to the next era when it'll still be, Maya Moore, Tina Charles.
Right, Renee Montgomery, all lottery picks.
Yeah, so they kept it running.
Stephanie Dolson.
But I'm not going. You gotta respect Gino. He built that organization up. So somebody that I can see if somebody took over UConn now, like you got a recruiting advantage. The guy that builds it doesn't have the recruiting advantage. So, but shout out to Dawn Staley. I hope she wins 12 championships because I think she should be the best coach of all time for college basketball. That'd be cool.
Nah, yeah, definitely. Like I said, just respect to her and the whole South Carolina team.
Do you know who's the potential number 1 pick though? Back to the
not necessarily,
because Aaliyah Boston she went back to school, and I figured she probably would have been the number 1 pick.
Paige is coming back.
So I'm not sure who the number 1 pick would be, but shout out to our Atlanta Dream. I'm gonna definitely have to check out who they get tonight with the top pick.
Nah, for sure. But back to the NBA real quick. Not real quick, but probably for the rest of the show. But
and the draft is on ESPN, so shout out to that too. I didn't realize it was on ESPN 7:00, April 11th. That's on Monday. So
y'all can listen to this, and this will be our reminder to watch the WNBA draft tomorrow.
Yep, right after that.
But the play-in tournament, once again, I feel is full of controversy if you look at Twitter and how people perceive it and how people are receiving it and how open they are to the idea of the play-in tournament. And this, of course, the play-in tournament goes back to the bubble because Adam Silver wanted to make sure that enough teams actually had a fair chance to make the playoffs, that had a chance to make the playoffs in the first place. And like I say, this year has been a lot of talk about it, truthfully, because it's a lot of teams in the West who were under 500 who still had a chance to make the play-in tournament and therefore make the playoffs. I know one on was the Lakers, who were eliminated 2 days ago, even after being 11 games under 500 to go into the end of the season. Of course, I feel like they should keep the play-in tournament. Maybe some tweaks they can make to it to make it better and make it more competitive, because I feel like it's already making the season competitive. But would you like to see the play-in? First of all, we got to stop calling the play-in tournament. I think that's the stigma behind it. But is this something you want to see go on for however many years after this?
I prefer they keep the play-in over, because he talked about like the mid-season tournament or whatever. Mm-hmm. I think the play-in makes like way more sense because you don't hear as much about tanking or about load management because teams legit got a chance to make the playoffs.
Right.
So you get a team like the Spurs who, a month ago, when the Lakers were still in, they weren't even thinking about it. Even the Pelicans, that kind of motivated them to trade CJ because they was like, oh, we got a chance to get in.
Right.
And then as the Lakers keep losing, the Spurs are like, oh, we got a chance to get in. And even if you don't make it, you end up going to get into the lottery pool or whatever. So you still can, possibly improve in a draft. But I think it's a good look for a young team like the Pelicans, who next year they're not thinking, they just want to straight up make the playoffs next year.
Right.
I think it's a booster for the Spurs too to see the success of those players. But like when Zion steps on the court next year, the Pelicans are going to be thinking make the playoffs. They're not going to be thinking play in turn. They're going to be thinking 6th seed next year. So the players that are there now, Herb Jones, Brandon Ingram, meshing with CJ McCollum, possibly Devontae Graham, if they bring him back. You want them to feel the playoffs, so you go into next year thinking like this isn't an option. You know what I mean?
No, yeah, I feel you. Like, so I know a lot of the talks was about how, do this many games, like say the Lakers for the longest, or even just look at the Spurs and those teams down there, where it's the Spurs are 34 and 47, the Pelicans are 36 and 45. That's like you 10 games under 500. Excuse me. Why should you have a shot at the 7th seed or even making the playoffs?
But I counted that with a couple of years. I mean, it's been years a lot of years in the East where the 8th seed would be under 500. So we've seen
that many games under 500 in that.
Yeah.
But I think, like I said, first and foremost, I think we have to stop calling it a play-in tournament.
Yeah, they do give it a negative.
It's actually a part of the playoffs because, in my opinion, it is a part of the playoffs. These are playoff teams, and what I know. When they first did it, I don't know, we were saying call it the wild card. No, that was the year after when.
Yeah, we were saying that last season.
Call it the wild card, which makes sense to me because that's what baseball calls it. That's what the NFL calls it. I don't think hockey does it, but if hockey has something like that, I'm pretty sure they will call it that. And I think there should be, like in the bubble, so many games. You have to be so many games within 8th or 7th place to where it's like, all right, you can go to the, it can be a play-in tournament or a wild card tournament. Yeah, but then I guess it's like that. It's like, then we start eliminating teams again, which is, I don't think is a bad thing, honestly.
Right, because that's why I asked earlier, like, should the Timberwolves be exempt because there's so many games ahead? Because I couldn't remember what was the bubble amount, and you told me it was 7. It was 7 games, right?
Yeah,
six or 7 games, whatever it is. If you're that many ahead, because the argument for people is, how am I fighting for the 7th seed and then I gotta be in this or whatever? But you're not. You fighting for the 6th. The top 6 exempts you from the play-in. I said in the bubble, that makes sense if people felt that way because you didn't come into the season knowing that. But the last 2 years, you come into the season knowing the play-in is a part of the season. So you fighting for the top 6 or you in the play-in.
All right. No, I agree with the same thing. So you just got to be ready at all. You got to be ready all year.
Changing the name would change the stigma of it, though.
Right. And actually talking about it as if it's included with the playoffs or not, a prelude to the playoffs.
Yeah, it's like when they in the NCAA tournament, when they added these plus these earlier games into they part of the NCAA tournament. You're not playing to get in the tournament. You're a part of it. Right. Whether it's week, I can't even remember exactly what it's called, but they usually just call it weekend 1 or play-in 1 or something like that. I don't know.
No, yeah, for sure. But it should. That's how it should be treated up.
Yeah, for sure.
So today, as we're recording, this is the last day of the NBA season. NBA 75, which we're gonna keep talking about to the end of the year, and is NBA 76.
Hey, it was Kareem's birthday the other day, and he turned 75. I didn't realize that.
Nah, so happy belated birthday to Kareem. When y'all hear this, it's probably going to be like 3 or 4 days out.
Yeah,
but shout out to Kareem.
They celebrated him at the Lakers.
At the Lakers game. Yeah. That's what's up. But shout out to Kareem, definitely one of the players who helped steer the NBA to where it is right now, especially with the... Shout out to that... What's the player for OKC? They just called him up from the G League. He shoot the hook shots. He shoot the sky hooks.
Oh, man, I can't think of his name right now. I actually...
But shout out to Kareem for having a move that nobody has thought to go and sit and practice outside of this guard for the OKC Spurs.
He done really added into his layup packages.
So shout out to that shot. But this has been a good season overall. I think there's been some disappointing moments at times of the season, both for certain teams, in particular the Brooklyn Nets, a team who still have title aspirations, honestly, even had been in the play-in wildcard tournament. They seem to be mostly fully healthy now. I think they're just waiting on Seth to come back. They're optimistic that Ben will be back for the first round. Have you seen the workout video? The practice video?
Ben's going to play in the first round. I'm pretty confident that he's going to play.
So right now, I think they're going to be matched up with Cleveland, who was absolutely destroying Milwaukee earlier. I'm pretty sure they've already won that game. Is this a game that Brooklyn needs to, take serious as far as just fine tuning the extra little stuff so they can try to make a long playoff run? Because we already know that first round matchup is going to be against Milwaukee. It's going to be a tough one. But do you think this is a good game for us? This is a young team who's going to challenge them with their length and their skill and athleticism. Do you think this is a good tuner game for Brooklyn? One that they should absolutely take serious as well?
Yeah, for one, I appreciated Andre Drummond saying the last two games were like must wins for them. Not saying must win as in we need it to make in the play-in because they already was in it, right? But must win as far as like just want to be in that mode going into the playoffs because now you're offering to play a higher seed, so you just gotta start kicking in that focus and the rhythm. So I think it was a good win for them. They played the Pacers today, right? They played the Pacers today. They got the win, and overall, people played pretty sharp. I mean, Kyrie finished with 35. KD gives you 20. I think Drummond had 20 today. So Drummond had 20 and 13 actually. Now, once you get in the playoffs, like I saw LaMarcus out, I'm pretty sure he's gonna play in the play-in. If not in the play-in, he's gonna play in the playoffs for sure because he was working out. In the workout video, I didn't see no reason for him not to play. So, this was the start of that, and then you add those pieces back with Seth also. And you gotta try and make a run because they're looking. I don't know how it works with Milwaukee losing today, but it's looking like that's who you might got to play in the first round. And I personally thought that was the one team you pretty much didn't want to play. But KD says, it don't matter, just throw the ball up.
Not for sure. Just speaking of KD, Kevin Durant, if he would have went 4 for 4 today from 3-point line, he would add another 90, 50, 40 season.
Oh, dang. So he didn't get it?
He goes 0 for 6 from the 3-point line. But just speaking of, I seen something on Twitter earlier. It was comparing.
It's okay because I wanted him to get it while averaging 30 because he would have been the second person to do it after Steph at 30. So he wasn't averaging 30 no more. So he's cool.
Right. But I seen something. It was comparing because of course he responded to a tweet from the guy. But it was a thing comparing Larry Bird and KD, who I always thought was the best comparison for KD. Honestly, like. I don't even know where I'm going with this, but just how special was Larry Bird? I think he's at for his career, he's averaged 26, 10, and 6. And it might be 24, my bad. But Larry Bird, 24. I don't think people ever talk about how ahead of his time Larry Bird was, honestly, because he just seemed like a regular player for back then.
I think he's the only player in NBA history to win 3 straight MVPs.
Yeah.
Definitely the last player, but I think he's the only player to win 3 straight, and this is in the era where Magic was playing, Jordan was playing.
Moses snuck one in there.
Yeah.
I think James Worthy snuck one in there.
Yeah, so to win 3 straight while those people were out there, that just tell you how good he was alone. I personally think Larry and I always say Larry and Tim Duncan because they're the two most players that sacrifice stats the most because of teams or whatever. I think they're like probably the two most, as far as the superstar players, they probably the two most underrated of them all.
No, yeah, I definitely agree with that because Larry Bird seems to be the one player, and this probably be it for Larry Bird right here.
28 one year, 28.
He seems 84. To be the one player from that era who I don't know if you noticed this, but he really isn't in anybody's top 10 for the most part. He's the one player that seems to get pushed out a lot.
I don't let people. You're not gonna change my mind about.
No, I'm not saying.
I'm just saying because he is one that gets pushed down.
A lot of people
but when I talk to people, you're not telling me Magic ain't number 2 all time, and Larry Bird is in my top 6. Like I got them 2 right there.
Like just off, like so we can
off their numbers and the game.
Yeah. But usually when you hear somebody's top 10 is Jordan. It's not even in order except for Jordan, Magic, Kareem, Bron, Kobe, Hakeem, Shaq, Tim Duncan, Bill Russell, and Wilt Chamberlain.
Yeah.
I don't think people realize how sneakily they stuck Larry Bird out of the top 10.
Yeah.
When he absolutely has a top 10.
Larry Bird made the All-Star game every year. His career except 1 year. That year he played 6 games.
92?
89. Played 6 games. 92, he played 45 games. Still made the All-Star team. Larry Bird is one of, I'm gonna get this number wrong, but I guarantee you it's not more than 3 players. I guarantee you it's not more than 3 players. Definitely the last 2 to make All NBA as a rookie. The last 2 is Larry Bird and Tim Duncan. I believe Kareem made All NBA as a rookie
before Bird and Duncan.
Yeah. So, but I don't think any other player made all. Not Kareem. It might have been he won rookie as an MVP. I mean, won MVP as a rookie. Wes Unseld. It might be Wes Unseld
before Kareem. Is that Kareem?
So I just know it's not more than any more than 4. I'm gonna just say 5 as a safe number. No more than 5 players that has made All NBA as a rookie, and Larry Bird is on that list.
Facts.
And Tim Duncan is on that list.
So I'm pretty sure you didn't see this. I'm pretty sure you don't follow his Twitter page, but it's a Ball. What is it? Ball Don't Quit, and he's basically like one of the. I don't want to call him. He's one of the original Twitter NBA content makers, and his whole thing is the Hooper verse, like, you know, what you see versus the stats and all that. Yeah. So he got a lot of his takes are like hilarious, because the other day he said he would take Steve Francis, Baron Davis.
Oh, I saw that. Steve Francis, Baron Davis, and
Chauncey Billups.
It was Chauncey?
It was Chauncey.
Steve Francis. No, it was Stephon Marbury. It was Steve Francis.
Right, it was Marbury.
Yeah, I was saying
first Magic over Magic, Isaiah, and Steph, because they were peer Hooper.
Yeah.
But that's not what I'm getting at right now.
And I'm sorry, man. Magic was a hooper, man. Magic pulling up and hooping. Imagine hooping with Magic at the park.
Nobody. We all know a dude, maybe not 6'9", but we all know that 6'5", 6'6", 6'7" kid at the park who can basically do it all. He's not like an athlete, like he's an actual basketball player.
And Magic be one of them dudes when he shoot, he never met. Magic was a hooper. He was a hooper.
Yeah, but he made a post, and it was regarding the Denver Nuggets team that featured Kenyon Martin, Iverson, Carmelo, and basically like how George Karl failed those players as because he got outcoached by Greg Popovich and Phil Jackson back to back. I know we usually don't go into this stuff we usually say this for like talk for the podcast or whatnot, but just first and foremost, I do not like George Karl as a coach. I don't think people understand. I don't like, because he's a very negative coach, first and foremost. A lot of his former players have spoken on that many times. Kenyon Martin had to tell him to lay off Carmelo Anthony like a couple years ago when, you know, we saw the league was trying to keep Melo out of the league. But I don't like George Karl first and foremost. But I don't think as a lower seed, 7, 8, 6, there's no getting out-coached by Phil or Pop. Like, they're just already a better coach with a better team. But George Karl responded to the tweet, and it was like he kind of absolves himself from it, where he doesn't take any blame for kind of how they lost. I think they got swept one year, lost 4-1 another year. I know he went to the championship with the Seattle Supersonics in '96, and everybody saw how he didn't want his best defender. He didn't want him on Michael Jordan, and that cost him. They were going to lose anyway, but it might have cost him the whole series in general, because Gary Payton is guards Michael Jordan the majority of the time. They win. But do you think George Karl is a coach where he can't take fault for some of the losses that he might have had in his career? Or it's he had some bad losses on his career, especially in the playoffs.
Yeah, basically, the 1 year, because they only had one full year with that team, because they traded for Iverson 1 year in the middle of the season, middle of the season. Then they get a full year with him the next year, and then he's traded the following year after. So he had one full year with that team, and they went 50-32. That would have, I don't know what seed they was in, but they got swept in the first round against the Lakers. But George clearly never really made improvements on what he did, and he just stuck to blaming his players. When he did get, it was adjustments that he should have made in the first series. Like, they probably would have lost to the Bulls anyway. That's 72-10 win Bulls anyway, but when something's not working, he didn't think to make the adjustments to go to doing what you did during the regular season, which you should have never changed that anyway.
Right.
But he's one of the coaches where when people say certain things about him, he does always have to push back and doesn't seem to take the criticism. And I mean, I think that's what's affected him when he's one of the coaches. I mean, he coached for a long time, obviously, but I think he was done way before he wanted to be done because he had messed up a lot of relationships.
And then, like when he came back from Sacramento, that should have never been a thing.
Right? Yeah. So. George, he was a solid coach. Obviously, he led teams to the championships and to a championship series. He didn't win any championships or whatever. And I think he's one of those, like, I think he's from the Dean Smith era of coaches or whatever. So he obviously was a solid coach. But yeah, George never was a great coach.
Right. And R.I.P. to Kobe. Kobe said he was gonna make it his career mission for George Karl never to win a playoff series against him anyway. So he wasn't beating any of those Lakers teams. But like I said, we winding down. Today's the last day. What's been your favorite moment of the season this year? Like player, like individual, team. Like what's been one standout moment for you?
Mainly Steph making 3,000 threes.
Surely.
Because I've been on that countdown for a while. He should have actually had it some years ago, which is even crazy to think. Because you got obviously, the time he was missed with his ankle on the full season, he missed for his wrist. What was it, his wrist, his hand, like 2 years ago? Yeah. So he really probably should have had this number. So seeing him pass Ray and then make 3,000, be the first person with 3,000 threes. Then also I like the resurgence of DeMar this year. I like seeing DeMar have the great year, the 50-point games, the game-winning shots, making the Bulls relevant, even though, Cleveland and the Chicago injuries have killed their season. Because people are going to talk about them and say that they were flukes or whatever. That's going to be the word that we'll probably see around. But, I mean, at the end of the day, it started with injuries for Patrick Williams, and that was ended with injuries for the fact that Lonzo's not coming back. I think Zach should be back for the playoffs, but like Zach hasn't played. Caruso missed a good amount of time. And then we know the injuries with Cleveland, but overall the resurgence of DeMar getting some real MVP talk this year. That was cool to see. DeMar is my high school's graduation class. I can remember him at AAU tournaments when I was playing, and I always knew he was going to be a good player in the league, and I just like to see his bounce back after, getting traded for Kawhi. I think that affected his ability to make all-star games with the Spurs because he was averaging career highs in assists. He was 20-7. They're 22-7. But since he got traded for the player that can get you over the top, I feel like that just kind of affected him. Yeah, I feel like it kind of affected him. Yeah, I feel like it kind of affected how people looked at him with the Spurs. And now we're at the end of the year and people are saying, oh, if he would have went to the Lakers, they would have been a contender or whatever. So, shout out to DeMar for his resurgence. And I would say Ja has been more like Luka's my favorite young player, but Luka and Ja are, I would say, combined my favorite young players. So seeing Ja take another step this year, I want to see him be healthy though, because he's missed a lot of games this year. 23 this year. He missed some games last year, so that's just something, not a big deal yet, but just something to monitor. I'm always on players that miss those amount of games, but I like him taking a transition and forcing his way into the conversation of best point guards in the league this year, forcing his way in the MVP talk. And just making, I always say, I feel like Memphis has a good overall team. They got a good overall culture, but I've been saying for like 2 years since he's been in the league, since Murray State, he one of those players where you want to win for a dude like him because he's going to pass you the ball. He's going to be excited when you get buckets, and it just look good when he can take over too. And I think this year he started to get in his, I can take over some games bags. Even, some times when they came up short, I seen him a lot more this year step into a role where my team need me to get 40, so I'm going to go get 40, which I didn't really know if he had that. I knew he was going to be good, but I didn't know if he had that. I'm going to go get 40. And he definitely showed that this year, so I like watching that this year for sure.
No, for sure. Have you heard about the Sacramento Kings recently? Like in the last couple days? So I'm going to read something from David Chingo, and I'm going to actually pull the story up as well.
I saw something about
that. David Chingo and his group, and his team are not all happy with the Kings. They believe that the Kings very specifically did not start him down the stretch of the season to limit his value in free agency. And this is a story I seen. I'm reading it now for the first time. I saw it earlier, but I lost it because I was at work. But apparently, the Sacramento Kings organization is described as basketball hell. This anonymous source described it as a toxic work environment in which people don't trust each other and they are thirsty to get any advantage or any promotion they can. This is Jason Anderson of the Sacramento Bee wrote this. He borrowed a line from former Kings forward Rudy Gay saying, "It's basketball hell. People are not treated well," he said. "They're not valued. It's a toxic workplace where there are some super talented people who either move on or get let go for different reasons. It's unfortunate because I think people come with really pure intentions and want to turn it around." Now, we all know the mess that the Sacramento Kings have kind of been over the past decade.
Ever.
Okay, we can go ever. But we know what kind of mess they've been. They have made the playoffs since I was in like middle school or something. But when you hear something like this, and we know that at one point the Sacramento Kings were sold to a new group. I don't know who they are now, but we've heard the front office from Vlade Divac not actually being competent. Shaq only being a minority owner for the Kings just to hold that over the team. Joe Dumars got hired in a position where he didn't really do anything this offseason. I don't know if people really paid attention to that. Mike Malone, him basically getting fired because he didn't want to play 4-on-5 defense, so Josh Smith could leak out who they were trying to get in free agency, but they didn't sign. At what point does this become... I don't want to go Donald Sterling because that's different, but at what point does this become like, all right, y'all got to sell the team and we got to do... I don't care. We got to get the team out y'all hands and we got to figure this out for the NBA.
I mean, the thing about it is it's always been that bad, though, so it's like it doesn't seem like it matters who owns the team. Other than those Chris Webber years, Chris Webber, Mike Bibby, after they transitioned from Jason Williams, White Chocolate.
Right.
They just always been terrible. You've heard Kenny Smith say that, and he played with them in the 80s. Oscar Robertson had his issues with them when they were Cincinnati Royals. So it's just like it's just been forever.
It's just that team.
Sacramento has always been basketball hell, honestly, no matter who's on the team. And they were, when this last group, I always get their name wrong. It's like it's something that starts with an R. I'm not even gonna mess it up, but I remember they were like trying to move the team. They was gonna move him back to Seattle, which kind of motivated Ballmer to get a team too, because he was in some conversations in some type of way with all of this. But I remember it was over the stadium or something like that, and they was really about to move the team, and then they agreed. Only thing that's gonna help them is to just get rid of the franchise completely and just start it over. No more Kings, no Royals, don't bring them back.
Get rid of the whole
just
team.
Just gotta let them go.
I see.
But what's funny about the DiVincenzo thing is, like, I can believe that they are trying to lessen his value, but at the same time, I don't think he the player to really say that really respectfully. He's a solid player. He's good. I know a lot of people like him, but his career high is 10 points.
And that's not even the disrespect or anything. But I get what you mean.
It's not disrespect, but it's like
De'Aaron Fox say that you kind of
it's like you holding my value. Mike Malone, they literally try to get him to play 4-on-5. That was literally a real thing.
He got fired. I think they were like 10-6 when he got fired.
Yeah, he got fired because he was like, no, we playing basketball. We're not gonna do that. So it's definitely valid that I could believe it's not a good basketball place, but this just ain't the person to shine the light on it, in my opinion.
No, I feel like if it was like De'Aaron Fox,
De'Aaron Fox is like,
a bonus for his short time there, you would even take a little more like, all right, man, let's pay attention to what he's saying.
Yeah, because DiVincenzo, this should be his rookie option, so I'm sure that they have can match whatever deal that he gets or whatever, and I'm sure they feel that way too because he also was coming off a major injury. He got hurt last year, I believe it was,
in the playoffs.
So you thinking about the deal that you're gonna try and get. So hopefully he gets his money. And Sacramento is a very, very terrible place. But, we just need to hear that from somebody else.
Funny? It's also funny they still ended up in Sacramento because remember he was in the Bogey trade that fell through because Bogey basically flubbed that up. But that's still just kind of ironic. But so The Eastern Conference, the play-in tournament wild card game should be pretty good. We got Brooklyn versus Cleveland in the 7-8, and we got Trae Young and the Atlanta Hawks, and LaMelo Ball and the Charlotte Hornets in the 9-10. I see somebody on Twitter say we bet, these are the games where we need DeAndre Hunter to be at his best because he's probably the only player on the Hawks that can guard Miles Bridges, just what he brings on the offensive side of the court. But I think you got Brooklyn in paying for the win against Cleveland, right? Especially with a lot of the Cleveland injuries here at the end of the year.
Yeah, I would take Brooklyn, period, no matter who they were taking. You got KD, Kyrie can play.
Right.
Yeah, I would take Brooklyn to win that game.
Think the Charlotte-Atlanta one is a real interesting matchup. Who you got in that one real quick?
It is interesting because I do have Atlanta. I think Atlanta's going to win. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't be surprised if Charlotte could pull it off because Charlotte does tend to play. They can play the style that Atlanta want to play. They can get up and down with them. LaMelo's just as exciting as Trae Young. Like, he going to throw the crazy passes and things like that, too. And Miles Bridges has improved. I don't think Gordon Hayward's playing. I think I saw that today. So
back foot.
Yeah, so no Gordon Hayward. I think that helps Atlanta. I would take Atlanta to win, but they can't take Charlotte lightly. I don't think Brooklyn can take Cleveland lightly either, but I think Brooklyn is going into that in championship mode. So they don't want to have to play 2 games in the bubble. In the play-in or whatever, and end up potentially at the 8 seed. But if you get the 8, like I said, I would rather play Miami over Milwaukee anyway. But I think Brooklyn just wants to get in. They don't care who they play. So
I feel you.
Less games is better.
Right. But so you're taking Atlanta versus Cleveland in the 8 seed game.
Yep, because if Cleveland lose, they fall to that, and Atlanta would get
So
Atlanta, Cleveland,
which would be another exciting point guard matchup with Darius Garland and Trae Young, but still kind of 2 contrasting styles. I don't know if Jared Allen will be able to play or not. I'm hoping he'll be able to play in this because I think that he helps Cleveland's chances that much more. And if Jared Allen is able to play, there's also somebody that can line up next to Clint Capella, while so Evan Mobley can roam a bit more on the rebound and defense, and even offensively. How great of a series would that be? Just like say, because first you would get LaMelo versus Trae, we get Darius Garland versus Kyrie, but then like say Trae versus Darius Garland. How exciting of a matchup would that be? Just for NBA entertainment media purposes, honestly.
I think for one, it's a big matchup for Darius Garland. That you get that big win and get into the playoffs. That looks good for him going forward. But and because Trae is gonna come with it for that game, he's gonna definitely be looking to have a big game. So that'll be a good matchup, and then a lot of good young talent. Period on the court. Evan Mobley, potential rookie of the year. You still got DeAndre Hunter. Like I said, then Trae Young and Garland, that's the headliners. Without Jared Allen, even with Jared Allen, I probably think I would take Atlanta, but I just wouldn't be surprised if Cleveland could win that game, though. I would take Atlanta to win, and Atlanta-Miami would be a good matchup.
I think a lot of people like Atlanta in that matchup, honestly.
Against Miami? Yeah, I just know it could go 7 for sure.
I'm sure. But then on the other side in the West, you got the Pelicans versus San Antonio, and you got the Clippers versus Minnesota. The Clippers is a kind of funny story coming in as the AC because we know they've been without Kawhi all year. I think Paul George missed 30 games this year, and Paul George has been back for some time now.
I think he got a triple-double the other day.
It's been talks that Kawhi could come back. He might not come back in the playing game. They probably would definitely want to win this game and get the 7th seed if they wanted to get Kawhi back. But do you give the Clippers... Matter of fact, how much do you give Minnesota a chance as the young team who's looking to... This could be a statement game for them for this year and for next year. Do you give Minnesota a good chance to win this game?
Yeah, definitely a statement game. You come into the game thinking we have the best player on the floor because you can argue that... Yeah, right. But you can argue that Cat is the best player on the floor. So
biggest mismatch problem for them as well.
Right. So, and you want to come in there and even prove to yourself that your season was legit. Y'all, they are 11 games over 500. You got an all-star in Cat, another potential future all-star in Anthony Edwards, just dropped 50 the other day. I would take the Clippers in that game, but I don't think the Clippers gonna have to come ready to play.
Nah, yeah.
Because I think this we did, depending on this could be the beginning of Ant, so that's what I'd be nervous of. I'd be nervous of him going out getting 30,
right? Because Paul George
and winning this game.
His direct matchup is right. Especially Paul George probably gonna guard him on defense. But is this a game like D'Angelo? I feel like D'Angelo Russell and Karl Anthony Towns need a good showing in this game as much as Anthony Edwards or Paul George do. Because I feel like a game like this could also silence some of those questions that people might still have for a player like Cat, who, even though he does put up spectacular numbers, is like where the playoff, not even necessarily the playoff success, but where it's getting to the playoffs and the playoff numbers to go with that. So how important of a game for Cat is this for his still early career, honestly?
Right. I mean, and then at the end of the day, yeah, Cat and D'Angelo Russell, they're both still relatively young players, but they've both been all-stars. They've both been around, so even though they are young players, I think Anthony Edwards has more of the he's young excuse, while they're getting into that kind of prove it. Yeah, they're both in that prove it kind of stage, honestly. So I think this game is actually pretty big for them, which could motivate them and lead them to win this game, because you are getting to that stage where Cat wants to be recognized, not even just as one of the best three centers in the league, but I think he genuinely thinks he's on the same level as Embiid and Jokic. You know what I mean? He can do a lot of the same things that he does. D'Angelo Russell is a player that, despite us knowing that he's gonna miss times, I think he's respected around the league as when he's on the court in the fourth quarter in close games, he can win the game for you. So you want to see that transition over into the playoffs. So being in that prove it stage could be enough to get them this win, as the Clippers are still kind of in the rhythm stage. I mean, Paul George has been playing well, but he's only 5 games back at the end of the day too. So this game is going to be really good.
No, and just speaking of D'Angelo Russell, because I think, man, you've been saying this all year, as long as he's on the court, Minnesota always has a chance to win. And I feel like this is a game where D'Angelo Russell wants to prove that as well, because he has been injured a lot over his career in general. But he has made the playoffs before. He was an All-Star that year. He has won some big games for his teams in the regular season, whether that was the Nets or Minnesota this year. And Minnesota seems like a team that kind of getting out of that funk that they had for so long, to where now they're finna start building something, especially with these still young players. So how important is this game for D'Angelo Russell as an individual player as well?
I think it's the biggest for him, because this is where he kind of fits in on the team. Cat is their current best player.
Right.
I know they're looking at Ant as their future. Even with Cat being a young player, you think he takes over the reign at some point. He was the number 1 pick.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I feel like they all know the closer is D'Angelo Russell. That's why they have been good, because everybody respect their roles. You hear Ant talks about Cat being their best player, how he unguardable all the times. And you also hear them talk about how they, feel like they can get the wins when the ball's in D'Angelo Russell's hands in the fourth quarter. Because, I mean, he is that guy. He's ice water in his veins. That's he got that on 2K. That's his thing. So, I think this is a good look for him. And then even just like I say, that he is also at that proving point. He's been through his ups and downs. His career's been traded. He had his issues with the Lakers, the injuries. So I think having some postseason success would be a big deal for D'Lo.
Nah, yeah, I definitely agree with that. And just over to the San Antonio Spurs and the New Orleans Pelicans, who's the other team in the Western Conference play-in games. I know about a week ago, Zion Williams stepdad said that he was going to play this year. And I'm not saying that to be funny, because, he sees Zion more than we see him. So he might see something that, we're not aware of, that he might be able to play. But if Zion is able to play, does that increase the Pelicans' chances of winning this game?
Yeah, because Zion is a player, which I think they win the game anyway. But Zion is a player that you could just plug in, because you don't necessarily have to run anything for him because of his activity or whatever. But I don't think Zion will play. It would be cool if he did. But I don't think he'll play. But I think the Pelicans get the win anyway, because CJ McCollum's been on the mission since he's been there. I think he's averaging like 26 a game since he's there. Brandon Ingram, you know, he wants to show that he's a legit all-star. That his all-star appearance wasn't a fluke. That he's one of the better young players in the league. That gets overlooked at times when they talk about the young players.
Right.
And I just think they overall just have a better team than the Spurs. The Spurs didn't really expect to be here.
I don't think they did either. I think they was not counted as a year for real.
Yeah, with the Lakers being as bad as they were, you know, the Spurs is one of them teams that's like they rather develop by winning. They like the young players that they have, and if they can get another player that puts them over the top, cool. But they develop by winning.
Just real quick, like I said before we get out of here, do you think Dejounte Murray is gonna have a big game? Yes or no?
Oh yeah, I expect Dejounte to hoop. I expect at least 28 and 8.
Ooh.
You know what I mean? That's his averages. I mean,
I'm bugging. My bad.
Dejounte Murray, right?
And 8.
Yeah.
I'm hearing 28.
Oh.
Yeah.
I was gonna say 25.
Word.
25, 5, but he averages 21, 8, and 9. So I think at the minimum,
I just misheard you.
You know what I mean? I think at the minimum, triple double territory. I think he can get a triple double, but that you know, he has to be healthy out there too because he missed the last game. I can't remember what the injury was, but he was like a last minute pull for something. But he should play in the playing game. But I think this is a good, you know, you make your first All-Star team this year. This is a good game for people to know who you are. Like, who, if you're the future.
21 and 9 assists this shit, too.
Right.
Like, I don't think nobody's actually talking about that.
Yeah, this is a good game for DeJounte.
No, but other than that, I think we can end it right there. You got anything else?
No, just as always, appreciate the listeners, appreciate the viewers. Shout out to the Off the Ball Network. You can catch us there every Wednesday for the Hoopers afternoon session, 12 o'clock. Off the Ball Network's Facebook page, the Hoopers YouTube, and the Hoopers Twitter. Make sure you also go to the Hoopers YouTube, go to YouTube, search the Hoopers Pod, subscribe, like, comment. Go check out some old videos, all that cool stuff. And then, of course, we here every Monday on the Nothing But Net channel through the Dash Radio app, 3 o'clock, every Monday for the Hoopers Hour. So shout out to Dash Radio, shout out to Nothing But Net channel. And then anywhere you can get your podcast, just search the Hoopers Pod, Apple, Google, Spotify, iHeartRadio. And all those cool places. And speaking of cool, also want to shout out Cool Motivation Clothing Brand, sponsors of the Hoopers. Just make sure you go to coolmotivation.com for all your cool gear. Spring drop is about to come up. Dope hoodies, sweatshirts, t-shirts,
2-piece for the women.
You know, a little bit of everything, accessories, bags, and things like that. So shout out to the Cool Motivation brand, coolmotivation.com, and go check them out.
Oh, for sure. I'm John W.
It's Fresh Hits.
And this was the Hoopers Hour on Nothing But Net Radio, presented to you by Dash Radio.